Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to day 6 of the 44th Mill Valley Film Festival. It's just so exciting to see you here today. I hope you've been enjoying yourself. This is a really special evening. This is our centerpiece, as in opening, closing, centerpiece. And we are so happy that we are showing Come On, Come On, an exquisite film directed by award-winning director Mike Mills. We're so happy to welcome him back. I want to take a moment to mention that, and remind you all, you probably already know very intimately, we are not-for-profit, and we depend on the support of our sponsors and individuals and members to make this possible. And it, of course, was as important or more important than ever to get through this last 20 months. I would like to thank tonight's sponsor, Vicky Soulier. Vicky. Vicky has just helped us immensely, not only prior to the pandemic, but during the pandemic, and certainly partly responsible why we're here today. So thank you, Vicky. We appreciate your support. Standing to my right is my esteemed colleague, Director of Programming, Zoe Elton.
Hello, everybody. Having Mike Mills's film here tonight is just such a great way to have this it's almost like having a second opening to the film festival, the centerpiece. One of the things that you may remember from seeing his work, he was last here with 20th Century Women, is that he has an amazing way of working with actors. He also has an amazing way of getting to the heart of a story and getting to the heart of characters. I love this film, and Joaquin Phoenix, I don't think has ever done a better performance. I mean, it's really beautiful, beautiful work. Gaby Hoffmann, also extraordinary, and an incredible discovery in the young person who's working in the film. I know people say never work with kids. If you're Mike Mills, work with kids. It's a beautiful film, and I would love to invite Mike Mills up here to introduce it. Mike Mills.
I feel like it's my wedding. Hi. That was such a nice introduction. I feel so humbled by all the work that Joaquin does. That's really sweet of you to say that. It's really lovely to see a room full of people. I edited this film alone. I never once showed it to anyone while I was editing it. I mean, I had to be alone, and we sent out links to people. So I never took an audience for granted, and now I really, really don't. And thank you so much to the Mill Valley Film Festival for making stuff like this possible. Not just for my film, for all films. It's like the lifeblood. It's what creates community and keeps it all going. So it's like, really, thank you for all the stuff that you do, all the work that you do. And thank you guys for like taking the time out of your lives to come to see the film. A film is absolutely nothing without an audience. It's like such a relational situation. So you make it come to life by watching it. So I will be here afterwards, right? We're going to talk, and it'll be lovely to see you then. Have a good time, hopefully.
We'll see you immediately following the movie for our conversation with Mike Mills. Please welcome back the director of Come On, Come On, Mike Mills.
Thanks for staying. And if you have to go, I understand. I hate being stuck.
So how do you like working with kids?
I love working with kids. I really do. We just saw the thanks for saying for the, I love the end, because we just came up with that when we were finishing editing, like, oh, I want to hear the kids at the end, all the kids we interviewed. And we were just in New York City, and we had a screening for those kids, because they're unvaxxed, so we had to have like a special screening for them. Some of them are unvaxxed. And it was so lovely to see them. I so treasure their, because they're not, I hope you know, they're not actors. We really did real interviews with kids. And I love their presence in the film, and that they're sort of outsiders, they're not actors, and their presence in the movie really adds this weird texture to it to me. And then Woody, people often ask us this question, Woody, the kid in the movie, he was 9 when we shot that. He's really the most mature person on that set. It sounds like a joke, but it's not. Joaquin and Gaby are the most wild, fun, young people on that set, and Woody is really smart. And so there was no like, how did you make it work for the kid? Yeah, they were 9, and Woody was 9, and it was whatever. They're 9-year-olds, so you had to be conscious of that. And there's like child labor laws, but besides that, Woody, at the end of the film, would joke to Joaquin, I've been carrying this whole film on my back. Step up, man. And which would make Joaquin just fall over laughing. Like, so it was like that.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. It's hard to grasp a 9-year-old really with this kind of an ability to act in this manner, because he is acting, he is improvising, he is obviously smart as a whip.
Yeah, and he's British. Do you guys know that? Yeah, his first time he came to America was doing this movie. So he's like a little hip British kid. So.
And he speaks American.
Yeah.
Well, I can't help but notice, your film Beginners is about a relationship with a dad, and 20th century women with a mother. And now, I know the story is not verbatim from your life, but you're doing a story about a young child, as you have one yourself. I sense a pattern here.
I have no imagination. Yeah. I'm not super interested in my imagination. I'm more interested in people I see, and like people maybe I can like. I feel like my only hope of making a decent movie is like from things I can report on that I've uniquely seen and experienced, and maybe like if I listen well enough, or I can like report it back with enough detail, you all might like it. And that's been my bet. Like I put all my chips on that slot, And I love when there's so many other filmmakers that do that. I didn't invent that at all, obviously, right? So I love it when I feel a filmmaker like putting all their chips on a place, right? And not that I'm that brave or iconoclastic at all, but I draft on that energy. I want to be like that.
Yeah, and I've noticed from at least what I read, we haven't had a conversation about it, but your filmmaking process is extremely creative and flexible, and doing things that maybe other filmmakers, some of them may wish they could do. And could you talk a little bit about that?
What are you talking about? Which part?
Well, that in terms of the flexibility and looking at maybe they don't want to change anything in terms of the flexibility, but you incorporate other elements at different times of the filmmaking process.
Yeah, I guess for me, like I want to be surprised. I want to be alive. I want the film to films are so weird. It's a weird thing to say to you all, but they really are. They're kind of magical entities. They have their own spirit. I love Fellini. You guys have heard of him? Do you ever read his books, like him just in interviews or him talking about filmmaking? It's like a deeply spiritual thing. It's like Pima Chodron and Fellini are on my bedside table, and they're similar. And they're all about like what is actually happening, not what you projected, not what you hope, not what you wish, what's really happening. And can you be like alive and ready and flexible for that? And if you are, maybe something good will happen. And I love that way of being or like working. So yeah, like I shoot in order. I I love to hear an idea an actor had and go like, ooh, what if we did that? Or like in this movie, so many things happen, like the mirroring, the tapping, or like the miming. Woody's, he's a kid, so he's always doing drum stuff. Mm-hmm. And someone did it back to him. I can't remember. It was like Joaquin or Gaby. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. What if you tried that here? Oh, what if you tried that with Scoot, who plays your dad? What if you tried that here? And it became like a really beautiful part of the film to me. And that wasn't planned. And, or like Gaby singing Shoop, I don't know if you... It's like she was waiting for a scene, and she knows every freaking word to Shoop. She could just do it like, poosh, poosh. And I was like, God, it's beautiful. What if you did that to Woody? Like that to me would explain that kind of mom so well. So yeah, I love things like that.
Yeah, and you're open to different change as obviously, as you're saying, as this goes along. And I read also that, of course, this film is based on your wife and your son, but by the time the film was happening, it was almost like you were recording this relationship developing between Joaquin and Woody.
Yeah, very much. I would say that the film obviously started with me and my kid. Like that was a source, and then it's like a year and a half of like writing on your own. And as you're writing, it's transforming. I'm not an uncle, and right. the kid does things that my kid didn't do. And I'm thinking of you all, really. I'm like, how do I start from this seed and like get it to here? And then you meet the actors, and they bring their own translation or their own transaction or their own history, their own vibe. And my job is, at that point, is to really like disobey the personal commitment and like give it to them, and hopefully kind of like infect them, not to use a pandemic-y thing, but like, right, you want to get it under their skin. If it's not like super alive for them, it's going to be very boring here. And if you pick the right people, it's really quite magical how it connects. I'm going to cry. There's a weird shit that happened with you in your life that can like connect with those people. But they spin it in their own weird way. But there is like this weird whoosh that goes back and forth. It's nice.
No, it's a beautiful, beautiful way of taking this great script that you wrote and letting it have its own life. I really respect that. So Gaby is a mother. She's a very complicated character. As a, don't mean, oh, she's a character. But she says at some point, really, nobody knows what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I can relate to that totally. Mm-hmm. I remember when we brought our second child home after my wife having a child 20 years before. And we put her on the bed, and she's like, this garment is swimming all over her. And we look at each other, it's like, well, what do we do now? And we already had a kid. Yeah. And our 80-pound Belgian sheepdog comes over, looks at her, and just goes, licks her in the face. Yeah. And that's life. It will happen regardless. But she seems to be a guide as well for Joaquin through this. And you have so many different, and I use the word as a double entendre as well, devices, literally devices, microphones, phones, and also ways to communicate people's their conversations between each other in a really honest and a beautiful way. Those phone conversations, and of course with Joaquin talking into the mic. Yeah, was that something you conceived of as part of the script, or did that come in later?
Which part? All of that?
All of that. The whole
movie?
Mashugana thing.
The whole Mashugana, that's a good way to put it. Well, yeah, most of that, it's all written. And that idea, her saying, we don't know what we're doing, right? How many parents can vibe with that? Like, it's your kid's so, like, judo flips you every day. And just when you thought you had it down, they're like, I'm a new person now, later. The old ways don't work on me now. And I found that kind of profound. And super deepening my experience as an adult human being on the planet, that they can constantly outdo you, and you don't really know what's totally right. It's like I don't know, I really like that vulnerability. So you did say one thing that wasn't in the script, and that was Joaquin talking into the mic, and that was Joaquin's idea. And I was introducing him to all these radio people like Ira Glass, and who's a hero of mine, and like Studs Terkel, you know, and Joaquin really likes Studs Terkel. I was trying to convince Joaquin to do the film, so like, what about this? What about this? And we had this like really neat friendship going on, but he was like, I can't do this. You know, like, can't do it right. I don't know. And so, and I think that's just his process. So I was constantly sort of like, you know, pitching things that might catch the fish, right? So Studs Terkel kind of caught the fish. And to be honest, This American Life, not so much. But for me, hugely. Then there's, you know, Scott Courier, you know, the radio guy? So Ira told me about some Scott Courier pieces. And I presented those to Joaquin, and I think Scott Courier is like responsible for Joaquin being in this film. Like Joaquin was like, ooh, I love that guy. And his weird wavelength, it's so strange. There's one particular Scott Courier piece, maybe you guys remember, can't remember the title, but it was like, it's about him talking about his own diagnosis, his own mental well-being. And so Joaquin just like, what if I did something like that? And what if I did that recurring in the film? So when he's doing those talking things, I would write it just to give him something to start from, so it wasn't just like thrown out there. But then he has an amazing memory, and we're shooting in order, so all those things happened, right? And so when he's recalling them, he's experienced them. So he would add details or things that happened that I didn't know about when I wrote it. And yeah, I love that kind of process. I love it being alive and not like some plan, some previously conceived plan that you're just executing.
So how long did this process of like you throwing the line out to Joaquin and seeing if he bites, how long did that go on for?
Forever. And it was like one of the most vulnerable making relationships I've ever had, because I was in love with him, you know? He's so smart, he's so interesting, he's so funny, I'm totally in love. You know, I'm just like, and he's like, yeah, maybe, you know? But charmingly so, like really supportively so. He's not high maintenance at all. He's only saying that because he doesn't know if he can do a good job. It's true. So what we would do is sit and read the script, and he would do Johnny, and I would do all the other parts. And I'm a formerly very shy person. I'm not an actor person. It was scary as fuck to do that with him. And I had to do it over and over again. And this really lovely thing started to happen where he didn't know if he wanted to do it, but he's just interested in the terrain of the film. He was just like interested in that turf. So we would end up talking about like the Viv character, the Gaby character, like as much as anything. And he had a lot of ideas. And like, so you know when she says, he's like, you're used to it. And she says, I'm not used to it. You know, sometimes I fucking can't stand it. And I love him more than anything, but like I had to do this, you know, that whole thing. That was Joaquin's idea. And it was something he heard a woman say. And he brought it up to me. He's like, man, women are just so 2.0 and we're chasing them. And we don't have to deal with the spectrum that they have to operate on. And she had to admit all that and then come up with this amazing mothering thing like, this needs protein, right? And then like have to deal with like, now you hate me, don't you? Because I'm a mom and I can't say that. And Joaquin painted that picture to me, right? And then so the way I work is like, tell me again exactly as you can. And he did. And then I wrote that down and then give it to Gaby, and Gaby pretty much said that.
And I think I read that Joaquin said...
Where did you read all this?
I have my sources. I have sources everywhere. Many of them in this room.
Yeah.
He said, where are you going to find an epic kid like this?
Yeah, right.
And how did you find an epic kid like this?
There's no good story there. Like I did something good in a past life
let's
or
move
something.
On,
well, he just came in casting. Like you do a call and you get like a link and there's all these kids, and Woody was like, kid number 2, and it was quite a magical experience. But up until that moment, or up until we brought Woody to LA to meet with Joaquin, who shows up in his pajamas, Joaquin and I are both like, this is a completely hypothetical idea because that's a lot of load to put on a kid. Right. And most of, Woody's really quite specific and particular, and I don't know any other kid that could carry that load and like come up to Joaquin and go like, what? Which he basically did every day, like, what you got, buddy? And Joaquin adored that. We both did. We love Woody's irreverence, intelligence, smarter than any of us, so like quick with a comeback. And we both worked hard to just like set Woody as free as we could, because we both smelled that like the freer Woody is, the better the whole situation is. Also for Joaquin, he loves to be like caught off guard. He loves to be just reacting to something alive. So, yeah.
Yeah, that I when I read that quote, I was thinking, well, maybe that was some of his reticence. That are you really going to be able to find?
Yeah, no, fully. Yeah, it was like, this is interesting, but it's not going to happen. It was a little bit of that air, and I even kind of felt that. And at one point, so we find Woody. It's like magic. We're like, oh my God, this is really great. He's British, and Trump times, getting his V1, his visa was actually really tricky. And so there's like a 4 weeks, and as we're leading up to the shoot, they were like, we don't know if we can get Woody in. And the whole visa process under those years was really opaque. You didn't know where you were in line. You had no idea if it was going to work out, right? And so I was saying to everyone, like, if Woody doesn't come, we're not making a movie. And I think A24 and my producers, my lovely producers, are like, Mike's just being a director who's lying, And there's all these other kids, and something will work out. And me and Joaquin were like, no, like if he doesn't show up, it's not happening,
I want to talk about the other kids a little bit, because there's two factors there that I think are interconnected. One, it kind of complements, in a way, what's going on, in the sense that they're dealing with the environment and these big, big questions of life, primarily. Mm-hmm. And the other part of what's going on with Joaquin and Woody is more about, equally important, but the small things in life, the things that you remember, the things that touch you as a human being and make you cry, and you hold on. Of how you manage to structure this film in a way where you could deal with small things that are universal, and then these really big things that are universal in a different way. Could you...
That sounds like my pitch to the movie, like to A24. It was something like that. Yeah, I love that axis, what do you call it, that spectrum thing, where it's like, I think my other movies have this a little bit, where I'm like, right, there's this interrelational space. It's so intimate. It's so like in the bathtub or snuggling in bed and talking about stuff. And it's so intimate, where that can intersect with like the world at large, or like expand out. That's when I get like, ooh, I can make a movie, right? This is something shareable, when I can feel that. And so when I was trying to come up with this movie, trying to like convince myself this is a doable situation, you have these kind of elements in your head, and you're like, okay, this kind of father-son-ish, uncle-nephew-ish world. And then I had done a piece before where I interviewed kids in Silicon Valley whose parents all work in tech about the future. And I really loved the piece, and the kids were like really quite amazing. It was for SF MoMA, actually. They commissioned it. And I was like, I'm not done with that. That's so interesting. And I started to think about those kids as kind of like a setting, right? Or like as a landscape, or as the world. And I didn't know what they were going to say. Obviously, it was just like a documentary part of the film. And I didn't want them to like be used in support of the narrative. I felt like that would have been really weird, like to use their lives to support this fictional people. I was trying to keep the films kind of separate, or let the kids have their own track, and that's why I was really happy to have them at the end, like to have them finish the film. But then over editing, and Jen Vicarello's edited it with me, and she's the editor. And it's a long process of like, oh, this thing that this person said, it's so great, but actually it doesn't kind of resonate with what's going on in the story quite enough. And if it resonates too much, then it feels like I just exploited the kids to make my narrative feel better. So they had to be kind of feral, kind of on their own, but like resonate just enough that it makes, I don't know, it kind of held together. Maybe, I'm sure a lot of people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? It doesn't hold together. But that was kind of like the chord we were looking for. I don't know enough about music to know what chord that is, but maybe it's like a jazz chord, because it's like pretty out there.
Yeah, it is, and it's something like I had never really seen. I mean, we talk a lot about empathy, and from The Bicycle Thief, when you see that kid going in the restaurant and looking at the rich kid, or anything from another culture that moves you in that way. And so those small elements are resonating with you in a much bigger fashion. But to have them both working in one movie, I have never seen that in it before, and it really works really well. And
well, I won't out my sources, but I feel like there's a world of people of work like that, where they combine those two heterogeneous styles. And I feel like it really films love contrast. Their films are actually so big in a weird way. And they need, like, at least I've bumped into that, luckily. Like, oh, wow, when you have, like, real opposing forces, it, like, enlivens the film. So when you brought up Bicycle Thief, so to me, that's actually the other side of the film, which is, like, the Fable part, or, like, the kind of, like, Jungian archetype of, like, the adult and the child silhouette. So I started seeing that when I was starting to commit to myself. I kept seeing those silhouettes like kind of walking through space. And to me, it's like an emotional silhouette. And it's like The Bicycle Thief, or like Charlie Chaplin's The Kid, or to me, it's even Christopher Robin carrying Winnie the Pooh upstairs. It's like that, I'll hold your hand and walk you. And I think Christopher Robin is actually the adult in that image, walking Winnie the Pooh as the kid. Yeah. And I wanted to tap into that Fable situation.
Yeah, that's
pretentious.
That's great. No, I get it. Cool. But and also when you're looking at Gaby talking about her son as a small adult, he's a whole being.
Yeah.
That is a really important part too. Really important, and of the way that she is a mother, and she's so nurturing, and yet juxtaposed to that, she wants her life, and she's dealing with her husband and so many different things, and she says she doesn't know anything, but she really does, and then looking at her child in that way is perhaps something we all should do more of.
Well, that's so Gaby, I adore Gaby, and I feel like she's just so intelligent, and she's a mom of 2 kids, and that, I was watching the film in Telluride, and I hadn't seen it, like I said before, I hadn't seen it with an audience, and it was really trippy. It becomes like, it's like your child going to college or something, it's like other. And I was like, oh God, I did it again. I made another film about moms, actually. And it's really like an ode to the mom. I feel like the mom's the heart.
Yeah, you can see and feel that. Now, some of the other people that you've been working with in this film, the cinematographer.
Yeah. Robbie.
Yeah, Robbie. I'm familiar with some of his work with Adrian Arnold, and
Yorgos Lanthimos, and
yeah. So, black and white.
Yeah.
You have going on the road. You're going to starting in L.A. and you're going to New York and Detroit, New York. How critical were all these decisions of that you were making of what city I have to be in New Orleans?
Yeah.
I can't be in San Antonio.
So, sorry, I keep crying. I don't know what's wrong with me. Robbie Ryan's a lovely Irish gentleman, and is a super crazily talented person, and made that look like so kind of effortless, I think. And a lot of those shots, of those landscape shots, I kind of like, and he's an Irish guy, you can't boss him around too much, right? Like and you don't want to. He's like a really unique person. And so he and my assistant, Joe, who's much more an assistant, he was like a co-director friend, would go out on the weekends or go out on certain days when we were off and just go fishing, they would call it. And I would tell him the kinds of things I was looking for, but I didn't go with them. And he did just the most beautiful stuff, you know. And I learned that from this band called The National I did a big project with right before I did this movie. And they're so collaborative. They're so open. I was like, I want to be more like them. I'm just going to let Robbie go and do his thing. And I'm so glad I did, because he's like very sophisticated and just utterly got it. And then this film really has so many nighttime interiors, which is the hardest thing to do, because you're stuck inside. You have to construct all the lighting, but you have to make it feel like you didn't construct it, right? And because we have a kid, it's all day for night. So all those windows, it's daytime, all those night interiors. So we just black the windows, right? And he has to create that. And he makes it look like he didn't do it, but it's beautiful. Like I think, it sounds like I'm complimenting myself, I'm complimenting Robbie. Like, it was like really startling and beautiful. And then, do you want the black and white answer?
Yeah,
okay.
please.
What is it? Back to my pretension. But I mean, there's so many movies that I adore that are black and white, and I wish it wasn't such like a big choice. I wish it was like we were all sort of more black and white curious and just can kind of be polyamorous, and it's not a big deal. But it was also, so I kept seeing that silhouette, the adult and the kid, and it was in black and white. And I think it was because of that sort of like Fable story-like quality, and black and white does pull you out of reality of it's a crazy abstraction. We never really see anything in black and white in reality, right? So I really feel like it pulls you into story and like into art and into like Winnie the Pooh a little bit, or into like this fable-y world. And it just felt really right for that image of those two people. And then I loved it as this kind of blurring thing between the documentary side of the film and that sort of fable-y part. And then I had these other weird things that I don't, you know, like at least me, I have to really convince myself to make something. I have so much doubt. So I have to really talk myself into it, or have all these little things that kind of help me. And so one of them was, it's a drawing, not a painting. I kept saying that all the time. So it's like a David Hockney portrait, right? It's like very immediate, quick, very kind of like, I find it actually really emotional and sort of real and lifey, right? And I felt like the black and white is that to me. Yeah, I think that would be the answer.
Well, I'm glad you felt that way, because it really works. And you mentioned The National.
Yeah.
The twin brothers.
Yeah, the Dessners. Yeah.
Yeah, the Dessners. You've worked with them before, though.
Yeah.
Produced their videos, albums.
It's a long story, but one of
Well, we have time.
Cool. I love therapy. I did a film with them.
Time and a half.
I did a film. Right, the therapist is always like, "We gotta wind it up." I did a film with them, and they gave me all the stems to their music. And for a band to do that is like really wild. And they let me just like kind of remix everything and really play and put a string piece. I was in this song, put it over here, and start the song in the verse and never get to the chorus and all this kind of stuff. And they kind of loved it. And I was like, you guys are crazy. Like, you guys are really interesting. And they're very exploratory, experiential. They're a rock band. You guys know them, The National, right? But they're really much more than that. They're like composers, and they do a lot of different kinds of work. And they're so open and interesting and so fun. And they liked what I was doing, so they invited me to like help make their record. And I'm a total wannabe musician. I find music to be the real magic situation. And I wish I could do that, and I can't. So to be around them and to be able to boss them around a little bit was like hallucinogenically fun. And they kind of liked it. And then, you know, like bands, they're always like kind of arguing with each other. And I was like Switzerland. So like everyone would listen to Switzerland, all the warring parties. So it was great. And so I was writing the film while I was with them. And actually the whole orphan gig, story, whatever, is from Aaron Dessner's daughter. She does that. Like, that's exactly what she does. And so I was, at Aaron's house, and they were talking about that. And I was like, "Ooh, can I have that, please?" And so I always ask, which is really important. Anyways, so the Dessners did the music to the film. Like, I was just watched the end of the film right now, and their music is so important. It's really gentle and I think easy to kind of overlook in a way how important it is to the movie. It's the heart of the movie. It's the heartbeat. It's everything. And then Leslie Feist did this amazing vocal thing over it. Like, it was at the end. I'd have to point it out to you probably, but it took a long time to figure it out. But I really feel like they kind of really found the what is it? Like the heartbeat sounds so silly. A way to kind of, through sound, wrap your arms around what you hope to be the heart of the film.
Yeah, they're great. I think they've been working a lot more in film, haven't they?
Yeah, they do a lot. I mean, they do so much. They're hyper prolific, and the amount of music I rejected that they made for this movie could make like 10 records. They're really prolific, and I really learned so much from them. They're very prolific and very oh, that didn't work, no matter, let's go on. Like, what else? Oh, that's so interesting that didn't work. Oh, wow, you want something completely different than what I expected. Cool. Like, new food, And I was like, God, you guys, that's really great. That's really deep to live that way. So I definitely try to draft off that.
I wanted to ask you also, because I just remembered, where did the orphan part come from?
Yeah, so it was Aaron's daughter. She does that, and she'll do it all day long, and she's even drafted her younger brother into doing it. So they show up at the door like, your children have died, and the orphanage down there sent us to be your children and tell us what they did, and then we'll do that for you. And they won't break, like, all day long. They'll stick to it.
God.
And so obviously that's charming and crazy things kids do, but also it's I think it's really deep and really a beautiful example of how kids aren't just cute. Kids are dark. Kids are exploring very deep things in their own kid language and figuring out the world in a very Jungian way. And that's what I took from it.
That's really interesting. What about Woody? When you were working with him, did you feel that was something that he was just doing as a child and bringing that into his craft when you were working with him, that he had an understanding that was beyond another actor?
Yeah, Woody isn't a child in that way. When you say that, Woody's a child, and they're yeah, they get tired. Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't want to listen to me for good reason. Woody completely understood what that scene was about. I didn't have to explain it to him. Woody got that this is exploration of life or something like that. He wouldn't put it that way, but he totally got it. And anytime Joaquin would joke or maybe ad-lib a little bit, Woody's just whoosh, right there, So I don't know I don't think it's just Woody. Woody's definitely a really special situation, a really special soul. I kind of feel like most kids are, actually. Someone put acid in my Kool-Aid earlier. I apologize. Thank you. Yeah, it's a perfectly reasonable response.
That scene.
Yeah.
We have so much to talk about. How much time does everybody have? I want to just say that this is a gift for all of us, and there's been a lot of films that deal with an adult and a kid who somehow get together, and there's some tension, there's some laughs, and there's kind of a nice ending. But you have turned this genre upside down for the better, and it's something that's going to be looked at, talked about, remembered for a long time. and I want to thank you for that. And please tell your friends about this film.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thanks so much for saying that.